Yeah.
But the Neanderthal ones are interesting because really they are cousins. They're cousins separated by 1 million years and some change.
Mm-hmm.
And
we don't know too much about them either, which is really weird. We know they had larger brains than us, but we don't really know how smart they were.
No, and why did we replace them?
Yeah.
Like, was it diseases we carried that wiped them all out? Was it we were better organized, so we got rid of, we outcompeted them, we killed them on purpose? You know, if there's 1 million branch species, we happen to know a lot about Neanderthals because they existed till very recently. But there's all sorts of branching that took place early on, lots of different Australopithecines, et cetera.
Yeah.
Almost all of those are dead ends.
Yeah.
And, you know, the fact that we're the only one that comes out of that could mean, well, we got lucky, or we're mean as shit, and we took care of all of our cousins who didn't, we wanted what they had.
I think the latter.
Yeah, probably a bit of both,
right? We're so mean.
Well,
I mean, doesn't it make sense that we were mean as shit 1 million years ago? We're mean as shit now.
Exactly. And what's so interesting is, this is something that, coming back to the point I was making earlier about us cooperating. So we evolved to cooperate with each other. But the key is we did not evolve to cooperate across different groups. So once you get to Homo erectus, and now you've got division of labor, and you've got the capacity to plan for unfelt needs, right, where they're carrying these Acheulean tools with them over great distances, etc. Well, now, who's your most effective predator? The occasional mammoth or saber-toothed tiger will kill the occasional one of us, but they can't possibly take us on in the same way we can take them on. There's only one other thing on the planet that can take us on, and that's ourselves. So other groups of Homo erectus would have probably been a major threat. Certainly by the time we're Homo sapiens, other groups would have been our only major threat.
Yeah.
And so we evolved to be kind to each other within our group, but we did not evolve to be kind outside our group. That doesn't mean we evolved to be mean. We evolved to be neutral. So let's see if you're going to be friend or foe. And that neutrality is super important. It has the potential for cooperation across group boundaries. We can change. Women and men can mingle so we don't interbreed too much amongst ourselves. We can trade with each other. Lots of good things can happen. But the second you guys get a little bit aggro with us, now we're in a position to just go all out and try to exterminate you. And so Wrangham has these great data. Richard Wrangham, same Catching Fire guy, shows that if you look at the rates of violence within human groups compared to chimps, they're like 500 times more violent, physically aggressive than we are. You look at the rates between human groups, equal. They're the 1-to-1 ratio. So we tend to think about, well, how could it be that we're both so nice and so mean? But we have to remember that we evolved to cooperate and to be nice to each other to be more effective killers. It wasn't because let's make a hippie, paradise. Right. It's like, shit, these lions are going to eat us. You and I have to get together to sort out these guys. And so our cooperative nature is literally the flip side of the coin of our competitive, violent, killing nature.
Also, the undeniable history of unbelievably ruthless tribal warfare would indicate that we have a long history of fighting against others that are like us that we don't know.
Absolutely. When hunter-gatherers meet each other and they do come into conflict, which is a huge percentage of the time, they literally fight to the death. Because if you capture me, you're going to torture me to death. If I'm female, you're going to incorporate me into your system and then it's going to be okay. Not great, but okay. But if I'm male, I'm going to die. So I might as well die fighting you now because I'm going to die unpleasantly later.
Yeah.
And that's super common. That's everywhere we see it. And there's tons and tons of bodies that are healthily perforated that are clearly the consequences of this kind of warfare.
It's crazy that is thought to be, even in 2018, an inevitable part of being a human being. I mean, warfare, even to this day, is thought to be inevitable because there's no... we would all love that one day there would be no warfare, but there's no indication whatsoever that that's taking place.
We're not almost there. And I think Pinker's got the best answer to this question, which is basically, well, what structures do you need to put in place to make the world a safer and less violent place? And I don't know if you've talked to him about his book, Better Angels of Our Nature. I know you've talked to him about more recent ones, but Better Angels is a great example. It's a great book. It's a great example of how we become less and less violent, and even over our lifetimes. Mm-hmm. And part of that is undoubtedly better governance structure and all that, but part of that I think is cycles on itself. So when I was a little kid, and this kind of thing probably happened to you, when I was in kindergarten, the guy who drove our carpool was a cop. So this cop is driving me home in the back of his car. Now, he's got no seatbelts because this is 1969 and cars don't have seatbelts, right? Big bench seat in a Buick or something. And we come around a corner and they all slide up against me to the edge of the car seat. And I'm trying to push back, but I'm this little guy, right? And I can't. And I must have hit the elbow against the door and it flies open and I roll out of the car.
Oh my God.
And I go bouncing across the street, right? So he's not going to arrive home empty-handed. So of course he goes and retrieves me from the ditch and he brings me home and shows my mom. And I'm bleeding and bruised and torn shirt certain, like you'd expect from bouncing out of a car.
Right.
And my mom, who's a pediatrician, so she could tell I wasn't badly damaged, looks me over and says, he looks fine, don't worry about it. Now, can you imagine if somebody brought your kid home and said, hey, man, really sorry, Joe, your daughter fell out of the car and bounced across the freaking street? You'd A-throttle them and be freak out.
And that's not that long ago either.
No, this is 1969 when you and I are both on this planet. And so what I think is part of what Pinker's documenting is as the world gets safer, we start getting used to a no mayhem world.
Yeah.
And these mayhem events stand out in our minds. And so it actually self-perpetuates, where the safer it gets, the safer we need it to be, because every little thing that goes wrong stands out in sharper relief.
That's a very fascinating way of looking at it.